Welcome back. So we're about to get to that conversation where we have two sides to the conversation. So give it a balance as far as the state of our nation, the state of the polity is concerned. And this has to do with the review of the assessment of President Bola Tinubu on one hand, but on the other hand, which is also very important, the conversation around 2027 has started for everybody, both the opposition and the ruling party. So the ruling party has even taken it a step further. They have endorsed the president. Of course, the way it works in political parties, the incumbent, if his term is still, if he's qualified for re-election, he will have the right of first refusal. Well, the APC is not waiting for 1 year in. For them, this president has triggered the right signal, and for them, he deserves a second term. And so at the national summit organized for all stakeholders, where the president was there, he was endorsed for a second term by literally all the stakeholders. But the coalition, on the other hand, are trying to walk things around. There has been hiccups here and there and all of that. But they keep releasing statements, using events to make their position known. And so there's been this back and forth between them and the ruling party. Bukola?
Yes, indeed. It's been a very dramatic mid-year for the Bola Tinubu administration, with a lot of assessments coming through from the opposition about how well or not the administration has performed. Of course, you also heard from the Afenifere on the front pages of one of the papers this morning, and the assessment has not been particularly kind, but trust the administration to respond to it. So there are coalitions of those who say they are hungry, and of course the administration has responded to that as well. There is the coalition of the oppressed as well, if you're following the conversation. But let's hear more. It's a critical time for the administration, and indeed for you as well, because you elected them into office. So let's hear more from the opposition and the ruling party this morning as we look at all of the implications and the dramatis personae involved. So joining us this morning for this critical conversation, we have the National Publicity Secretary of the All Progressive Congress, Mr. Felix Morka, who joins us from our Abuja studio. Good morning, Mr. Morka, and thank you so much for joining us.
Good morning to you. Thanks for having me.
Thank you very much, sir. We also have joining us this morning the spokesman for the Obidati organization in the 2023 election and member of that group, Mr. Tanko Yunusa. Good morning, Mr. Tanko.
Thank you very much. And you forgot to mention the interim national coordinator of the Obedient Movement. Yes. That is more important at the moment now.
Thank you, sir, for the clarification, the correction. I'm going to start with you for good reason, Mr. Tanko. This is a critical time of the year for Nigerians and the administration. Questions are being asked about how well the administration has performed, particularly with all of the reforms that have been put in place, the floating of the naira, the removal of subsidy, the subsidy savings. So from your standpoint, how closer are we to, economic transformation as promised by the Bola Tinubu administration? Do you see the gains of the reforms coming through?
Okay, let us do a comparative analysis, and I'm going to read from the manifesto of the APC for emphasis and accuracy. And it is very also clear that for us to get these issues on the right perspective, and I don't want to be misquoted, that's why I'm going to read. They call it an honest contract for Nigeria. You know, the manifesto of a political party is a social contract in which you sign with the people, because that is what you canvass to the people. And he said they have three major issues there. They have relief, recovery, and reforms. Now, number one, they said they have a decent life for every Nigerian. A decent life for every Nigerian. At the moment, I cannot quantify that particular decent life at the moment. Two, they said they have jobs. 3 million new jobs a year. 3 million jobs a year. That means At this year that we are, that's 2 years, that means you will have had 6 million. Probably Nigerians can be able to assess whether we have 6 million jobs being created. And that, of course, deals with the Nigerian youth especially, because that is the strength of the country. Then there's going to be health care for all. Health care for all. His Excellency Peter Obi visited a hospital very close to the airport here in Abuja. On your way to the airport, just by the left-hand side, there's a village called Tungam Alaji or so. You go to that particular hospital, there's only one nurse, no doctor. The maternity ward and all is completely dilapidated, and that is where he makes some donation of about 20 million naira in an instrumental basis to see he can assist. Just one nurse. Guarantee free education. Guarantee. It is not optional. They said guarantee. At the moment, most of the schools, you can bear me witness. How much do you pay for your child in going to school at the moment, right now? You know how much is it that you pay. Even in the public school, you can assess whether it is free or being made possible for your own, by your own payment. Urban renewal and housing. On my way to Zamfara the other day, most of the housing that they said they had, all of them, almost all the rooftop, you can visit some of the rooftop of the, some of the houses that have been provided. Take a look at indices. It's not rocket science. You can go behind your every state and confirm whether any of these particular housing are being provided for Nigerians as well. Then they said that trickling poverty is safety net for every citizen. Every citizen, the issue of poverty, which is so excruciating at the moment now. I don't know how Nigerians can be able to manage to do Salah. And I know what happened in the last Christmas and all of that. So we are witness to a high level of poverty rates. In fact, interestingly, the northern part of this country is the most worst hit. Talking about Zamfara, Kebbi State, Kano State, and Jigawa State, rated as the highest poverty state in the country, possibly in the world, as the way it is. So I don't see anywhere in which poverty has been alleviated in Nigeria at the moment now. Keeping Nigeria safe, we just saw what happened in Taraba State. Nigerians are being killed like chicken on a daily basis. And even some of the things that are happening as issue of saving, like now, His Excellency Peter Obi just visited Mokwa. We had a flood. Yes, somebody would have said, but probably there was some safety net or being provided or information or guidance being provided before the people were being submerged by that particular flood. Thousands of people have lost their lives. Sports and culture. At the moment now, Nigeria is at the verge of almost not qualifying for the World Cup. So, but no thanks to the Unity Cup. Thank you for those particular boys who did a big job. But when you come to issue of preparation, of winning or getting things done for Nigeria as is done in a developed country or developing country, believe me, we have a lot of questions to answer. Secondly, now, the issue of recovery.
If you can hear me, Mr. Tanko.
Recovery.
If you can hear me, your assessment is not in doubt. Let's allow Mr. Moka to respond to some of the things that you have said. Mr. Moka.
Thank you. Well, thank you very much. Well, I'm a bit surprised that my good friend is reading out of a document he ascribes to APC as a manifesto. But even at that, even if that were a manifesto, everyone knows what a manifesto means. A manifesto is a broad statement of vision, of aspiration that a party puts forward as, guiding principles and guiding philosophy for its engagement in politics. Now, the program of a president, who wins an election is somewhat, yes, informed overall by a manifesto, but it's a program that is specific, that's somewhat, measurable and achievable. That is not what my friend has referred to, but, I don't think I want to dwell on that. The fact of the matter is that this president was elected for a 4-year term. And we're sitting here attempting to make a review of performance in 2 years. You know, I think we need to be very conscious of the fact that that's what we're discussing. You know, a mid-term, you know, assessment as you framed it. Now, if, you know, anyone is under the illusion that in 2 years that an elected government in our country, like anywhere else in the world, would deliver all of its even more specific goals or objectives, that doesn't happen. There's a reason that the framers of our Constitution allotted a 4-year term to, you know, the president and other elected officials to perform. Because in the overall assessment, from comparative, you know, understanding of, you know, governance, it is clear that a particular gestation is needed for people to think policy, you know, develop implementation frameworks, and actually perform on those objectives. 2-year assessment is fine. But I think that even at that, in the 2 years of this president, I think that, you know, everywhere you look, you see evidence of, you know, really inspiring accomplishment against the backdrop of the circumstances that we faced and continue to face at the inauguration of this president. Now, I think that a lot of the discussions, whether it's stated or not, revolves around, you know, the president's twin flagship policies, namely the removal of, you know, fuel subsidy and the harmonization of, you know, multiple exchange rates. You see, I listen and I go around also, you know, making my contribution when I'm invited. But I have not heard anyone really stand up to vigorously canvass what might be the alternatives to these two policies in the context of our economic realities. Prior to 2023, everyone knows that this country, even before 2023, you know, for decades, quite frankly, that we have been dealing with, you know, complex, you know, generationally created, you know, crisis in our country. That has denied us progress and denied us, you know, but this president did what no other president before him had the audacity or the political will to do. Because those are not policies you make without attendant, you know, unpopular consequences. And of course, without repercussions for the, you know, livelihoods and the cost of living impacts on our people. Which is why many of the presidents before this president shied away from it. You know, yes, oh, the people protested, you know, Mr. Jonathan tried to do it, people protested and he buckled. If he buckled, you know, listen, I have a lot of respect for President Jonathan, but, you know, it also means that he didn't quite have that degree of political will to decide what was in the best interest of Nigeria. So I don't think that should be blamed on those who protested, rather than on the man who raised his right hand, took an oath to, you know, uphold the Constitution and to do the very best he's able to do for the country. Look, all I'm saying is that this president is on track, because no one, I've not heard anyone articulate, nobody in the coalition, the so-called coalition, has articulated alternatives. As a matter of fact, all of those who contested for this office in the coalition, namely Alhaji Atiku Abubakar, Mr. Peter Obi, campaigned on the promise to Nigerians to also remove fuel subsidy and, you know, float the naira. Now, there is no romantic way to remove a system of dependency that people have been accustomed to without, you know, discomforting them. There's no way to do that. There's no way that, there's nobody, none of them has come to say this is how we could have done it, and everybody will be like, you know, still living like, you know, we are eating bread and butter every day. Look, but the point is that those short-term, you know, challenges will dissipate and are already dissipating with time, and the true, you know, purpose and the true impacts and benefit of these reforms are becoming self-evident. You can see all of the indicators. Our economy has never grown as it did in the last quarter of last year. Our foreign exchange reserve has gone from where it was, you know, barely, you know, 6 billion to now, you know, I mean, upwards of, you know, 30-something billion. You know, our balance of payment, you know, surplus has never been this good. Local industries are picking up because imports has declined. We are exporting more than we are importing, which for the first time in a long time. So look, I think if we want to be honest, yes, things are not perfect today, but they were never perfect in the last, you know, 20, 30, 40 years. And, you know, but is it about perfection or about, you know, evidence-based, you know, programming that shows that we're making progress? I think that's really the standard we should focus on.
Mr. Moka, I'll allow Mr. Tanko to also respond to some of the things you've raised. I know we've had this conversation about some of these numbers, and I'm happy you have said that there will be immediate consequence. And this is why you will keep answering this question. Yesterday, you answer it today, you answer it tomorrow, because of two basic things. People are feeling the consequence of the action. The president says he knows what he's doing. There is an undefined destination. There is a hopeful destination, not really a defined destination in that sense. So we have seen a few things as far as the numbers are concerned that are encouraging, but the social impact is what is the biggest problem as to how this should have been done in terms of sequence or not. And we've always said that the balance of trade, for instance, is debatable, even though the facts are right that it's in surplus. But that's what happened when you deregulate, when you look at all of the curves in economics as far as things like this are concerned. But let's leave that. Let's come to you, Mr. Tanko. He's made a very strong point. He said he's listened attentively, he's spoken on panels that he's been invited to, that the coalition is busy talking about power grab, but putting up an alternative idea as to how this should have been done, because they at least all said they'll remove fuel subsidy. As to the harmonization of the exchange market is a different kettle of fish. What could have been done differently if you were to respond to Mr. Moka?
Oh, thank you very much. Ab initio, I made it clear that I am the leader of the obedient movement, the coordinator. At the moment now, the coalitions will have its own structure and those that will respond to it. But I've been, at least, been part of it in a way. So I can say authoritatively, from our point of view, when you're talking about an inflation rate of about 34% in terms of income and expenditures of Nigerians, you don't need anybody to tell you whether this government have done good or not. All you need to do is just visit your kitchen. Go to your own respective kitchen. I'm not talking about I'm not separating it from anybody, including those in government. They can go back to their kitchen and look at what they are able to get or purchase at the moment now and compare it with what they would have had before. They will have seen the vast difference. Or they should ask their wives, when they go to the market, what they give them to make purchase with, and they can now compare and contrast. You will see a dwindling economy in the system. And these are facts. You don't need to be told. So when you make comparison as regard to balance of trade and all of that, you are not making it in the way that affects the Nigerian people's life. As we speak today, a average RAM, I'm making indices of practical position right now, will cost you nothing less than 2 to 3 or 400,000 naira. Eunice Etonko, in the last 1 or 2 years before the Salah, I bought a RAM at 54,000 naira, equal size or even bigger. This is the practical situation. But we are saying in a different way that, okay, why don't you invest in our agricultural system? Even though in part of their reforms, they said they are going to be agricultural reform. We have not seen any. Investment and borrowing rate has reached skyrocketed high level, which has affected the country. And then you are talking about how you can generate funds for the country. You are talking about the security of the country. You are talking about the level of unemployment that affects the every lives of Nigerian citizens as we speak. There is no comparison to tell me that probably this government is doing well. Look, when we speak, we are not speaking as if we are antagonizing the government. They should take it as a free consultancy and do one thing out of the so many things that we have mentioned. As an opposition, it is our duty to make sure that we explain to the people some of the things that the government is doing wrong. And when we say this, the government is expected to take a cue from it. When you speak about manifesto, the manifesto of the party is the social contract. There's no second to it. If another candidate use another manifesto on his own side, that is in his own personal manifesto. Come to talk about the issue of subsidy. As of today, this subsidy that was said to have been removed, it's been paid through the back door. It's been paid through the back door on a continuous basis. And so where is the justification? The major problem that this particular government has is the inability to tell the Nigerian people the truth.
All right.
Nigerians won't kill you when you tell them the truth, but don't meander, don't manipulate. Let them know exactly what their situations are. Don't run away from answering questions, because that's what makes you a government. So as of today, the inflation rate has reached its astronomical high. Unemployment rate is so high, the Nigerian people cannot be secured from going to point A to point B. And then at the same time, the basic indices of survival in this country is at all-time low. And then we keep on meander and manipulating and saying probably this government is doing well. Obviously, no, sir.
Well, Mr. Tanko, let me come to Mr. Moka now to get his response. And here's the thing, Mr. Moka. So we've seen the coalition, former minister, for example, Rotimi Amechi, was saying he's hungry. And we've heard Mr. Peter Obi saying, well, he's in coalition against hunger and poverty. So it looks like somehow there's this common thread amongst either the opposition or coalition. They're coming together, or at least they're speaking against hunger. And you know that once they're able to resonate with the people, that's going to be a major threat to your party, either a re-election at the federal level or at the state level. So he has said that you're not telling the people the truth. So speak to us about this. Aren't you concerned that these are real issues and people will resonate with the coalition or opposition, call it whatever, and maybe vote your party out?
Well, thank you, my good friend. You know, when my friend was speaking about RAM and the cost of RAM, in my head, I'm like, well, if that's the cost of RAM, I think, you know, I need to find time and, you know, go back to Delta and, you know, try somewhere to set up a farm to raise RAM and, you know, sell for 200,000 or so that he says RAM goes for today. Look, you know, anyone who understands basic economics knows that in an economy where there's, you know, real reform going on, what this is doing is actually giving incentives to people to produce and to get rewarded for their production. You know, yes, the 200,000 that RAM may sell for today, somebody who is producing RAM is, you know, that's income to that individual or group of persons who are engaged in, you know, RAM farming. And, you know, the whole idea of the reform is to stimulate local production, bring, you know, increased income to those who are productive, and discourage imports. Critically, that is a formula that is, you know, undeniable, that, you know, for economic growth and stability. And, you know, that formula is not different from, you know, our country. Now, to come back to your question, now, because, you know, Amechi or anyone else, whether it's Peter Obi or anyone else, declare that there's hunger in the land, does not mean that Nigerians, all Nigerians, are, you know, are naive enough to simply take that without any context. When anyone makes this casual comparison, you know, oh, you know, the yam or rice used to be, you know, X amount, 20 years ago, and is, you know, X, you know, Y amount today. You see, that is just being disingenuous. Because, you know, you are discussing an era or a period in our economic history where the value of our currency was simply dictated. It was not, you know, based on any sort of sensible, smart, economic, market-determined, you know, value of the naira. So yes, if, you know, look, you know, let me say this for our people who are at home. What do you think it would take for Mr. President today to declare that, or to, you know, in consult with the CBN and other agencies of the federal government, to declare that today, you know, Nigeria will now peg the value of the naira to 1 naira to $1? What do you think it would take this president? You know, if he were to do that, I bet you that this conversation will shut down. All of this, you know, birthday parties that people, you know, put up to, you know, lampoon the government, will shut down. They'll be out of business. And that will almost, you know, guarantee this president, you know, a smooth landslide, you know, victory into his second term. But other presidents have done that. They've dictated the value of the naira. But this president is saying, no, for the long-term good health of our country, I won't do that. So when people say that things are more expensive today, well, yes, in relative terms they are. But, you know, the growth that these reforms will, you know, will introduce and sustain in our economy, we produce the good that ultimately will not only lower prices, we make, you know, goods and services more available and more affordable. That is the pathway of any country that has reformed. And I think, you know, for us who are in the studio, you know, my good friends who are, you know, having this conversation, I think we shouldn't really take hook, line, and sinker some of this framing of the conversation. You know, as, you know, mighty men and women of the pen, we must also interrogate those who make these allegations. For instance, when Amechi says he's hungry, you know, Amechi must be interrogated. What does it really mean? Does it mean he's struggling to provide food, you know, at his table? Or is he hungry for something else? As I said in my statement, is he really, you know, food he's hungry for, or hungry for, you know, I mean, just, you know, naked power, because he's accustomed to, you know, having power over nearly half a century of his life. Amechi just turned 60. For 25 years, about 25 years of his life, meaning that, you know, from the age of 35, this, you know, man, that young, was already a dependent on state resources. And, you know, I don't see a commensurate, you know, impact that Amechi has made, whether as speaker or as governor or as a super minister, to, you know, again, demonstrate 25 years of, you know, this opportunity to make changes. He talks about how he was, you know, his passport was taken in Germany and all of that. You see, when an ordinary Nigerian says that, I can relate. But when Amechi, who has had the opportunity to really, you know, put down his footprint, you know, whether it's, you know, in pushback against poverty or in accelerating development in our country, didn't do so, is the one lamenting, like, you know, this ordinary Nigerian who traveled to Germany and had experience at the airport. I am not impressed, and actually that's actually very disappointing for a man of his standing to, you know, come in public to make those kinds of statements. You know, look, you know, I am also, you know, a democratic operator. I was one of those who fought hard for our democracy. So yes, he was a former governor, he was a former minister, but some of us were in the trenches. Well, we were willing to lay our lives down.
Pardon me, quickly to follow up.
In defense of our democracy.
Are you saying that all that Mr. Amechi has was gotten?
And you all also need to interrogate this, you know, individuals.
Mr. Moka, can you hear me?
Say so, just because, not because they're in the opposition.
Yeah, just quickly, before my colleague comes in, I need to get clarification on what you said.
Yes.
Are you saying that all that Mr. Amechi has was amassed from government, from public funds?
I have not said anything like that. All I've said is that as a public officer for nearly 25 years, 24 years, you know, to be specific, that Amechi has been in office and therefore has been a beneficiary, consistent beneficiary for nearly a quarter of a century of government, you know, patronage and, you know, living off of the, you know, benefits of his office. Even if it's just his salary, you know, that's a man who has been employed consistently for 25 years. And I'm saying that, you know, there's no commensurate show of what he has contributed to tackle poverty in this country, to tackle hunger, and certainly to bring Nigeria to development like the president is, you know, criticizing, has done in 2 years. He hasn't even done anything close to that. That's my point.
All right, Mr. Moka, that's your statement comes in quite heavy, and, you know, one could ask as well that, you know, if these assertions and insinuations are being made from your statement about the lifestyle of ministers, of a minister in a past administration, should we assume that that's the lifestyle of ministers, regardless of the administration that they're under? But perhaps we'll have time to expand this conversation further. Let's come to you now, Mr. Tanku, and ask about you know, very real issues within the Labour Party Mr. Peter Obi's ally, Obaze, has resigned from the Labour Party over disagreement of the Anambra primary. We've also seen the diminishing ranks of Labour Party members as well at the National Assembly level. And this is impacting, whether you like it or not, on the chances of the party in the next election, especially, the presidential election. I'd like you to speak to permutations about the All Progressives Congress coercing other elements to come to their party. Would you say that, this is responsible for members of your party leaving your party as well?
Well, probably, let's put it in a context. The name that is reigning now is about the one-party state. And I laughed because we have seen political parties who attempt to ensure that they emasculate other political party and call them smaller political party and move in some individuals into their party. Of course, what will happen in the very shortest period of time will be an implosion, which is already started because I heard that some of the persons who have run to the ruling party at the moment are being told that there's no automatic ticket for them. And so what you expect in the next few days or few months is a lot of people who are not happy with the situation, and then they will be looking for an exit point or provide damage in between. So with regard to what we are doing, we are trying as much as possible to cover up all the loopholes, and that is where the enabling environment would give room for all of these. The Electoral Act must be challenged. The Electoral Act being challenged in such a way that it will make it seamlessly fair to all. And this represents the area of how people move from party A to party B without recourse to the fact that they actually, run election on party A at the first place. So, meaning that the Electoral Act must be rejigged in such a way that anybody that wants to leave his own political party, which he has a right to do, but he will leave that political party and leave the seat at the same time. When you leave the seat, if you are popular, go back and canvass for party B. And that Electoral Act must be rejigged in that manner. And at the same time, it is also important to have a proportional representation, because what you see in the system at the moment now is that a winner-take-all syndrome. And that is why it is easy for the party in position of power now to meander, enforce, intimidate, and probably coerce individuals into their party. I can tell you for sure, majority of the people that are moving to party A and party B, as the case may be, are not doing it in their own interest. It's either some of them have a case of EFCC, or either some of them has a corrupt issue that is tied against them. And then the government of the day, of course, in trying to enrich himself with a lot of individuals, we just need to flash some of those particular documents at your face, and then you will come singing the names of the next the political party. So they will go there and probably thinking that they will end up being a saint. But they forgot one thing. The majority of the people who are in the position of the voters' card are seriously aware, and they know where to vote for. So it's a warning to anybody that is running from party A to party B to know that the electorate knows exactly who they will vote for, and they will vote for a candidate that they know that will protect them. So invariably what I'm saying here is that we need to have a serious reform as regard to the Electoral Act to make it work. You can't imagine when you have a senator of the Federal Republic of Nigeria or a member House of Representatives, now you won a seat, then you now look in the eye of the people and tell them, I'm no more part of you. Meanwhile, you've stolen their mandate. So it is wrong, ethically wrong, and intoxicating to our democracy. So for those of us who have been consistent in terms of defending of democracy, it is not for us only, it's for the future. And I can tell you for sure, I have been witnessing some of the people who have left that political party, one political party to another, came out and complained that it was a fundamental mistake that they made. And then time will tell, because the election will soon come, and the people will vote another person that they feel can protect their interest. So in a middle way, the Electoral Act must be rejigged in such a way to protect the integrity of our democracy and make it more flourishing. But at the moment now, this particular government is trying to kill democracy with this issue of one-party democracy that is trying to protect. Anyway.
All right, Mr. Tanko.
Let
me stay with you for a moment before I go to, if we have time, go to Mr. Moka. So One of the things that Mr. Mock has been trying to, which I'm telling him and I've told him over and over, they will continue to defend the policy of this government till as long as people are feeling the pain. Because some people don't understand it, some people may understand it. The fundamentals may be looking right, but the compounded effect has not trickled down to the ordinary person. So what they try to do, for instance, in economics, something called the Govt theory, when you devalue your currency in that instance, things get worse and then get better if all the fundamentals are right, because it changes consumption pattern, where things are not cheaper for foreigners to buy in our country and forcing us within our country to buy our own product, but when we don't have things like power and all of that, those are the fundamentals that can defect or deflate whatever reform this government is pushing forward. I said that to lay a foundation to my next question to you within 1 minute if you can answer. If you were in government, your principal was in government, Peter Obi, who has also said he's going to remove fuel subsidy or PMS subsidy in that sense. And if you had done that and removed it, and where we are right now, people are crying and say this is getting too much, what would have been done differently?
Let me allude to this fact. Do you know that we have over 20 million Nigerians uneducated? Do you know the level of hunger that is rating in Nigeria is so astronomically high, which we've already mentioned, with statistics? We're not talking about with statistics. Now, you talk about what will a Peter Obi do differently. He has said it right from the beginning, that you are not going to go borrowing for money that you are not going, is not going to be not subsidized for production. The key issue is about production. Production, as we are speaking now, some people are saying that we are producing. I don't see anything that we produce as a country. One thing, just let me know, what are we exporting as a country? What? Virtually nothing. So we invest in something that can be more productive. He is talking about a constant production of agricultural product. He looks at the area and the arable land in the northern part, and he mentioned this yesterday. Even he mentioned it to the government in government house in Niger State. He said Niger State alone is more than Netherlands, and Netherlands is producing output of agricultural product that double or triple what we make as oil in Nigeria. So why don't we invest seriously in agriculture in terms of both livestock and physical agriculture? When we invest in agriculture, we will have things that we can export, and then it will at least dwarf what we are depending on in oil. So the actual issue is that he will invest in production of agricultural product. That's just one state out of the 19 states.
Okay,
of the Federal Republic of
Mr.
Nigeria.
Tanko,
And yes,
I did give you 1 minute, although I don't think you answered the question. This is your way of answering the question, because I posited a scenario for you. You've talked about production, but I talked about power. I wanted you to go back to where the government met what it is right now and the pain the people are feeling as to what would have been done differently. So, but let's have Mr. Moka give his final take.
Thanks, Jeff. One is, any allusion to APC as responsible for the utter dysfunction in the Labour Party or in the PDP or any other opposition party is just bogus. We're not responsible. They simply have proved incapable of managing their internal affairs, and yet grandstand about how they can transform a Nigeria as complex as our own. Second of all, all of the discussions we've had, the summary of it is that the policies of this administration is in fact, stimulating production. And, look, you see, there's a reason that some of these opposition figures are restless. They know that in the fullness of time, that with what this president has started, with the, increase in our productivity, our export profile today, relative to our import profile, they know that with time, Nigerians will shut down their television when any one of these individuals come on TV. They are fully aware that this president is headed in the right direction. They are anxious that he must be truncated so that Nigerians don't see the fullness of the really massive impact that these policies are meant to make. Jeff, I'm happy you at least, which is, I'm pleasantly surprised that you're willing to concede that, yes, the macroeconomic numbers and trends are looking good. In 2 years, if it's looking good, then I think that you should be optimistic, and we all should be optimistic, that in 4 years, that, a lot of the microeconomic, impacts and benefits of this macroeconomic progress will become even more self-evident. The trend is already in that direction. And I think that we Nigerians need to tarry. Let us sit back again like this and do, a 4-year assessment at the fullness of this term and see what it is we have on our plate to discuss. I am confident that in 2 years, by the time 2027 comes, this conversation will be far more, I think, richer and fuller, because Nigerians will be already witnessing on the dining tables, drastic, changes in some of the fundamentals that we're discussing today.
All right. By that, final sentence, Nigerians are wondering if 4 years will be the mark, for the social impact of this statistics that you have quoted to trickle down to the real sector, and to every Nigerian at the lower rung of the ladder. But we're going to have you back, gentlemen. By every standard, this has been a very, very productive conversation. And we must thank you very much. We've been talking with Mr. Felix Morka, the National Publicity Secretary of the ruling party, the All Progressives Congress. And we've also had Mr. Tanko Yunusa, the National Coordinator of the Obedient Movement. Thank you very much, gentlemen, for your time on the program.
Thank you very much. God bless Nigeria.
And of course, there's more to come on the program. We'll look at the soft side of things, and of course, we'll look at other big talking points as well. Procurement is also top on our agenda this morning. Stay with us. We'll be right back.